Welcome to the Rotojoes Fantasy Football Podcast. Tonight, guys, there's not going to be very much fantasy because we're in the AFC and NFC Championship rounds here. But we have coaching openings, we have rumors, draft stuff, a little bit of betting stuff, all types of fun things to get to. First and foremost, Bill O'Brien coming back home. He's gonna reach the glory land again in New England. No more Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. That's going to be really nice. Do you think Bill O'Brien makes us a playoff team next year?
So I'm a pretty avid Bill O'Brien hater. He kind of set the Texans back about 10 years just by existing. But as far as being an offensive coordinator, I think he was really. It's really not hard to improve from Matt Patricia, who really that whole thing was really weird. Like he was always the defensive coach. It was a weird thing for him to be calling offensive plays. We all knew that and realized that. Everybody but Bill Belichick realized that. I think they were really on the cusp of being a playoff team, and if they add the right pieces through free agency, through the draft, like they very realistically could sneak in there. Bill O'Brien, I hope Bill Belichick retires and they give the keys to Bill O'Brien so you can feel my pain.
Well, we wouldn't make him the GM, so we're not going to feel your pain. That was the issue.
Why not?
Yeah, in the role, you can tell that ownership was handled the whole offseason very differently this year from last year and prior years. Gerard Mayo, the press release about him intending to stay and hiring an OC never happened before. The fact that Gerard Mayo was named the defensive coordinator and he's not just linebackers coach. That's a change from the past. I think that Robert Kraft, and Bill probably realized it too, but I think Robert Kraft told him, like, hey, I get what you were trying to do, stopping the brain drain not working. We need to fix this. And Bill O'Brien's better than I think a lot of other guys we could have had. I know Chad O'Shea got thrown around. He works at the college ranks. I don't want a college OC with Mac Jones. Bill O'Brien was, but he has NFL experience. I don't want a pure college guy coming in and trying to help Mac. Bill O'Brien has experience with quarterbacks. Him and Deshaun had some weird stuff that happened, but he did well with Deshaun. He did well with Brady. He's had a good track record with quarterbacks. So, and he's done well with Matt in an offense that Mac Jones would do well in Alabama. So,
yeah, he also is familiar with the Patriots organization. He's not like a new guy. He was in that role. Unfortunately, I feel like that was probably 10 years ago, but guys like Bill Belichick just don't change a whole lot overnight. So I feel like there's some familiarity there that could be beneficial.
I think it will help with how Bill wants to run the staff. Mike LaFleur to the Rams. I really like this one. I think Sean McVay getting, and it came out this year that he felt like his staff had too many yes men, but Sean McVay getting as many people in that room that are intelligent about offensive planning and play design that might disagree with him sometimes, at least have opinions that are strong enough that they can say, hey, Sean, I know you're seeing this, I see this, will really help them next year. Sean McVay's been around long enough now that while his offense is really good, we've seen it 6-7 years. We've seen loosely how to stop it, how to play against it. Not that last year was coaching, it was more injuries, but LaFleur being there is just going to help that. And so I think that was a good move. And while I don't think it makes a huge difference, that might be the difference in 2 or 3 games this year.
Yeah, I think
he wasn't the issue in New York. Ow.
No. I think Zach Wilson has to own a lot of that. And, we saw Mike White come in there and look like Joe Montana a few weeks. Joe Flacco came in, looked pretty good. So, yeah, we know clearly who the issue in New York was. For me, man, the Los Angeles Rams, they are in a very unique situation. They've got a lot of good pieces, but they've got a lot of money tied up in those pieces. I don't know their exact cap figure, but I feel like it's just not good. Can't be good just because of how much they've paid some of these people. On paper, they should have a really good team, but everybody's got to stay healthy, and they just didn't last year. So it's hard to imagine what we saw last year to see them go out and do a whole hell of a lot better. I mean, surely they will if people come back, but yeah, they're fucked on cap. They're fucked on draft picks. Like, I just don't really see this team improving a whole hell of a lot next year. So while that might have been a smart hire, I'm just not super excited for the Los Angeles Rams next year.
Yeah, it's gonna go one of two ways there. Either Stafford comes back all right, Robinson's better, Cup's fine, they get some run game, or, and I think you're right, there's gonna be whatever. Maybe a 7 seed in the playoffs, 6 seed in the playoffs, but they won't be bad like this year, but they won't be good either.
They're not gonna be the Los Angeles Rams of last year. And that, unless some people take some league minimum contracts to go there, which I just couldn't imagine with how bad they were.
Nathaniel Hackett to the Jets. Do we see Rodgers in New York?
You know, man, that was a good hire. I feel like you know, he was good even in Jacksonville with Blake Bortles. So we know the guy can be an offensive coordinator. I want to say Nathaniel Hackett just kind of has a Todd Bowles syndrome where he's a great coordinator, but when he gets to that next level, he just isn't the guy. And I think there's a lot of evidence out there to back that up. But yeah, I like that. You know, I almost wonder if they're trying to lure Rodgers to try to get traded in New York. And, you know, I just really don't know what that trade package would look like. A first and a second. First and a second for a guy that old? God damn it.
All right, so if you get, I bet Rodgers has 3 years on him.
Do you?
He talked about retiring to fuck with the Packers. I don't think he really wants to retire as much as he likes to use it as a chip. He's Brett Favre 2.0. He's going to go to the Jets, then he's going to go to Minnesota, and then he's going to defraud the state of Mississippi.
I wish he would go to the Jets and go to the Lions, and then
then defraud the state of Mississippi.
Right. Or whatever state he's from, California, probably, I think.
Yeah. Same as
but yeah, I mean, it's very realistic. Like, I think those rumors are kind of swirling up, and there's at least some substance to them. It sounds weird to say it out loud, but if Aaron Rodgers goes in that office and says, "I'm going to retire if you don't trade me to the Jets," then, I mean, what choice do they have? Yeah, let him retire, get nothing for him, or go get a little something and move on?
I'm fairly certain he's done in Green Bay. I think I know that for sure.
I feel like you're right. I just couldn't see a reality where he's interested in hanging around for what is really looking like a rebuild.
He doesn't like the kids.
Fuck no.
Like the kids. Yeah, no. I think Rodgers. I like the Hackett hire. He was the issue in Denver.
Yes, he was.
But he's a good OC, too. It doesn't take away the fact that he can OC really well. And Saleh has a strong voice and good leadership. So I really like that.
I don't think as a rookie head coach, Russell Wilson's weird shit, like his whole demeanor, his personality, I don't think that's going to blend well with a rookie head coach. I think that was probably part of the problem.
He needs like a Sean Payton or a Brian Flores that'll just deal with it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. We are going to play. We'll go over all the open jobs. We're going to play if they haven't hired a coach. We're going to play matchmaker, pick the coach. If they have hired a coach or it's pretty certain, we'll just talk about the hires. So first off, I have Frank Reich going to Carolina. I love this one. Frank Reich was a really, really good coach that got really fucked by his front office and his ownership. I think he'll do well there as long as they figure out the quarterback situation. And here's the deal. I'm not so sure if Reich was the coach past 2 years, they're not in a better spot. Sam Darnold can run a offense. It might not be a great one. And Reich's a guy that, we've seen it with Wentz in Philly. We've seen it with Phillip Rivers. We've seen it with Jacoby Brissett. He can elevate average to below average quarterback play up a tier. So below average to average to slightly above average. He can elevate you a tier. So, yeah, I like Reich a lot. People bitched about it because Wilkes did well. And he did do well. But Steve Wilkes, he's a defensive coach. You're going to be 8-9 every year at best. And you don't want that. So I really like the Reich hire.
I agree. Here's my take on it. Like, so Steve Wilkes is one of the ones who has a legal action against the NFL for racism and hiring and blah, blah, blah. He was the interim coordinator. They did halfway decent. I don't feel like there's any race. Truthfully feel like Frank Reich is going to be a better head coach. I don't think that's even in question.
When you stack them up,
yep,
you have an offensive guy who's won with limited quarterbacks and shown that he can do that, which I don't think unless they get Stroud, a quarterback's not walking through that door that's above average. Or you can go with Wilkes, who, what's he going to do with that? Nothing.
It's going to be a revolving door, and Tepper's fucking sick of the shit. You can tell that he's ready to, put the quarterback position at bay for the next 10, 12, 15 years. They're trying to handle that. Yeah, dude, I mean, you got to realize, like, I think Wilkes gets you mediocre to average return. I think Frank Reich's a guy who, in a very winnable division, because you got to assume Tom Brady's going somewhere. You got to assume New Orleans has a lot of question marks. Atlanta's Atlanta. So very winnable division. You get a guy like Frank Reich, and he's probably the best coach in that division right now.
I agree wholeheartedly. All right, next up, we'll just hit Houston. Houston, it's not officially official, but I think it's official enough to say DeMeco Ryans going to be there. Love that hire. If you're going to hire a defensive guy, you want him to be under 40. Because those, like DeMeco Ryans coming from San Francisco, guess what that guy's going to get? We need to play good offensive football. Salah, we need to play good offensive football. McDermott, we need to play good offensive football. So these young defensive-minded coaches aren't bad. It's not like the older guys who are uber conservative. DeMeco's exactly what they need. He brings in leadership. He's a guy they can rally around after Lovey. And then I can't even remember the guy's name from 2 years ago. David Culley. That's who it was. It's yeah, I really like DeMeco. I think he's going to be really, really, really good in Houston. I'm excited to watch what they do. Real quick, I know it's off topic. KU beat Kentucky. For all my college basketball fans. Rock chalk. All right, but DeMeco Ryans. Yeah, I love the DeMeco Ryans hires exactly what they need. You bring in a young quarterback this year, assuming they do. Got to be happy with that. I think the move for him, honestly, is grab Nick Anderson and let DeMeco Ryans build that D-line and grab Caleb Williams next year.
I mean, it could be. As far as the draft, there's a lot of different variables that could happen in the meantime. But DeMeco Ryans is the one, truthfully, the best thing we could do. You know what I mean? He's talented. He's a leader. Like there's so many reasons why we should hire DeMeco Ryans, and at this point, I think it's going to happen. I think we're really, really close to doing that. There's certain limitations, like We can't even talk to him again until next week because of the NFC Championship game. But we can name him the head coach, I guess, after that. Here's the thing about DeMeco. Young defensive coordinator, great leader. He kind of smells like Mike Tomlin. Kind of got that same swagger to him. I love it. I don't think we could. We've been fucking around with bad coaches for a long time. I just hope we do the right thing.
Yeah, you just gotta hope he doesn't get canned or anything at this point. You've had bad luck 2 years. I mean, it's just a bad look canning coaches just to can coaches. When you're firing David Culley for Lovie Smith to fire Lovie Smith, I don't know, that's not a good look. As long as DeMeco stays around, Steve McNair's a notoriously bad owner, but I think that DeMeco probably knows what he's getting into there, and he's probably comfortable with what's going on. Next up, go ahead.
No, I just said, yeah. I mean, Cal McNair is a terrible owner. His dad was just as bad. But I think the difference right now is what I'm reading and what I'm being told is I think the wife is getting a little more involved in the team. And she's really, sadly, our only fucking hope to have any kind of, like, difference from what has been happening. So I can't remember her name, but I hope she's doing what she needs to do.
You're gonna write this lady a letter. Please save us.
Hire DeMeco, bring Andre Johnson back. Let's go.
So let's move on to Arizona. Arizona is yet to hire coach. They have interviewed Vance Joseph, who's their defensive coordinator, Sean Payton, Brian Flores, Aaron Glenn, Ejiro Evero, who's Denver's defensive coordinator, and Raheem Morris. I think Brian Flores would be my matchmaker.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's my burning question on this. I think Brian Flores is probably the right hire. I think he's the best the best coach out of the group of coaches we just talked about. Is he going to be able to deal with Kyler Murray?
I agree.
I think Brian Flores strikes me as the type of guy where if he gets any lift from Kyler Murray, he might whoop that boy's ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I feel a clash of personalities, and he hasn't even walked in the building yet.
I could see Brian Flores beating his ass. Yeah, I could really see him getting tired of it. But that's what he needs. I mean,
yeah, Kyler Murray needs to get his ass beat. I mean, he's too talented to be as big-headed and not really as productive as he should be. Like, something needs to change, and if he can't see that, then he is in the wrong business.
Yeah. All right, Denver, here's a fun one. Denver's interviewed Sean Payton, rumored to fear ownership struggles. I think that it's safe to say Payton's out of this cycle, unless McCarthy gets fired.
I think he's out too, and the thing is he's under contract, I think, next year as well with New Orleans. So he's going to have a similar, like, they want something out of this next year, which really sucks. But he also signed that contract, so it's hard to feel bad for him.
Yeah, no, I don't feel bad for him in the slightest. He's making a shitload of money. Denver, so and Sean Payton, Ejiro Evero, Raheem Morris, Jim Caldwell, David Shaw, and now here's a fun one. Allegedly, Jim Harbaugh took a second meeting with the team after committing to staying with Michigan. This timeline's interesting because that would also be coming after Sean Payton reportedly is out of the running. Based off what I'm looking at, I'm going to say it's either going to be their defensive coordinator, but I don't think it's him. I think it's Harbaugh. I think if they can't get Payton, they're going to drop a shitload of money to bring that guy in. Because who else are they going to bring in off this list? I mean, looking at who they've interviewed, DeMeco's out. They've said they're out of that. So DeMeco's out, Reich's out. I don't know who else you're gonna fucking hire.
Caldwell is going to be a Rooney Rule interview for so long. That's what Caldwell is, and it's unfortunate. Like, he had some good years in Detroit. Yeah, he's just not it, man. And out of that list, like, that's just Sean Payton fears an ownership struggle type of thing. Like, so he's from what I've read, not very interested. And then what are you left with? At that point, you got to try the defensive coordinator. I feel like if you're not going to get Harbaugh, but that's interesting. I didn't know about the Harbaugh second meeting type of thing. That is the best thing they can do. And without question, that is the only way that they're going to be able to. I am just really a Russell Wilson hater. It's developing. It's burning in my blood more as time goes on. I can't fucking stand the guy.
I know you don't want to see the truth of it, but he played really well at the end of the year last year.
No, I mean, I'm a big Judy fan, right? I'm a big Jerry Judy fan. I even like Cortland Sutton. Russell Wilson is one of the most obnoxious human beings on this earth. And anytime I have to see an interview where he's involved, I just cringe, dude. It makes me sick. But yes, Jim Harbaugh would be the best thing they could do because the other options are really dwindling, and it's weird. It's so weird that a team with that kind of roster, like, of the head coaching vacancies, that's the best roster. I mean, it's not even a question that that's the best roster. So there's something else, right? And you can make the argument that that's a tough division, but I think the front office is also really weird. And I think that's scaring some people off to some degree. But, yeah, Jim Harbaugh, if they can get him, they better fucking just – what's Bill make, 10, 12? They better pay him 17.
Do you want to know how much Bill Belichick actually makes? Because you're way off.
How much?
So it's not released, but the rumor around Boston sports radio with the guys who are actually plugged in, Bill Belichick annually makes $25 million a year.
That's fair.
I agree. He does.
There's no cap. There's no cap, no salary range on coaches. So he can make whatever the fuck he wants to make. And I think a guy like Bill Belichick has earned that type of dollars. So good for him. Yeah, if that's the case, I feel like Jim Harbaugh going to Denver better be 20.
Pretty close. All right. Last.
Sean Payton wanted 20 to 25. That has been out.
Yep.
So
all right.
You want me to give up a first round plus and pay you 20? God damn.
No, I'm not doing it. All right. Yeah. Last team. There's a shitload of names here. I don't like any of them. The Colts interviewed Jeff Saturday, Aaron Glenn, Detroit's defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, the Eagles OC, Evero, Eric Bieniemy, Mike Kafka from the Bills, Wink Martindale, Brian Callahan, and then last but not least, Rick Bisaccia. Pencil me in, Steichen or Bisaccia.
I don't hate Steichen.
I don't either.
I think he's part of the upbringing in Philly. I don't know if he's the mastermind behind it, but he's definitely got a lot to do with it. So here's the thing. That's a division rival of ours, and I think Irsay's an idiot. I really do. I think he is a complete dipshit who just has a lot of money. Off of that list, well, Jeff Saturday went in for a second. I did read.
I think he's the actual name.
I think they're going to hire Jeff Saturday, and that's great. It makes that division even more winnable if Jeff Saturday is the coach of the Colts. Because he had that one good game out the gate, and then he fucking laid down and took it the rest of the year.
Bad.
It was bad. And it doesn't matter what they do in the draft if they have bad coaching. So I think it'll be Jeff Saturday, but it shouldn't be. But if I was making the call, it would definitely be Steichen, probably.
That would be who I would choose as well, but I don't really like any of those names. I'm not a huge fan.
It's not like a D'Amico type of this is the guy. Like it's like I guess this is the guy type of deal.
Yeah. All right, transitioning over into thinking a little differently. Let's talk about dynasty buy lows. A lot of dynasty leagues, especially if you're in one with people who are newer to the platform, probably really slow right now. But this is some of the best. Player values are highest right before the season, lowest right after the season's over. Draft picks inverse from that. So this is the time to go buy players. So we have 6 players here. Some going to be good for contending rosters. Some are good for rebuilding. Some are good for both. And we'll talk about that. But yeah,
here's my disclaimer is do not trade for a draft pick. If you haven't traded for a draft pick, the value is never going to be higher from here till draft time. It is going to be off the charts value for draft picks right now. So if you don't have it, don't trade for it because you're going to pay a hell of a lot more than what you're actually getting. I mean, you got to realize the bust percentage on draft picks. You got to realize, a lot of things could happen from here to the draft. And if that thing is not a complete hit, you lost that trade. I can't say it any more clearly that like right now I am completely out of the market for buying draft picks. I'm more looking to be the guy that gets a lot more than I should out of those draft picks right now.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be buying picks. And the dirty little secret I have, I think, is that I don't think the 23 class is as good as it was built. I just don't.
Certain parts of it I love. There's certain players in it I'm a big fan of. I think the 23 class is better than the 22 class.
Yeah, it's deeper than last year, but it's not what it was brought to be. Even Bijan, personally, I've soured a little bit on the guy. I like him. I don't love him.
Disrespect.
He a little bit of a similar runner to Breece Hall, and I have my reservations there. All right, Caden, your first buy low, Kenny Gainwell.
That is one, man, I'm keeping in the pocket. Like, I'm going to share it on this pod, but I've been keeping it in the pocket for a while. And Kenny Gainwell, man, he blew up the last game when, the game's out of reach. They throw in the second stringers. He had himself a day. Huge average. He's a very explosive type of guy. And I think there's a realistic opportunity where he's the guy in Philly next year. Now, there's a couple things that have to happen. Miles Sanders has to want too much money. I think that one's realistic. I don't think he's going to get the contract he feels he's worth. I smell a little James Conner in there. Just really good season. He's going to try to go out and get paid. I don't think Philly does it, so that one's realistic to me. Now, if they get through the draft without drafting a running back, then we're good. But I think maybe a Jahmyr Gibbs ends up in Philly, maybe Tank Bigsby, second round type of guy. Maybe they do that, but this is the time where you can make that gamble really early. Kenny Gainwell, you got to realize if he's on someone's roster, you could easily get him for a third.
Yep.
I feel like you could get him for a third any day.
All right.
Yeah, because right now he holds almost no value. This is just an educated dart throw on my part, and it's really just a gamble. You need some things to happen, but if those things do pan out, then you have a clear shot to a guy who, in my opinion, can be a high-end RB2.
I agree. I like Gainwell a lot. It's just all about opportunity for him. He's going to be cheap. I wouldn't give up a lot. If you could throw a couple of thirds or a third out for him, I'd do that all day long.
Mm-hmm.
My first buy low, I have Jahan Dotson, wide receiver in Washington. This might be the cheapest first-round pick you're going to find on the market. Dotson saw 6 out of his 11 games last year. He scored in the top 25 weekly PPR wide receivers in 6 out of his 11 games last year. Only 22 years old. He was a top 20 pick in the 22 NFL draft. Runs a 4.43, good hands, good route running ability to attack multiple levels of the field. This is a guy that screams Tyler Lockett / Christian Kirk to me, and he's only 22. I traded Kirk for Dotson straight up, and I got the same player 4 years younger, and I feel good about that. Is the quarterback situation perfect there? No. But I think that it'll get hopefully better, and I like the talent of Dotson, and he's cheap in a lot of leagues. So he's a guy that I'd really look at going to buy.
Jahan Dotson, man, he had those flashes of brilliance last year, and I think he gets better because next year they have openly committed to people potentially as their offensive coordinator and said Sam Howell's the guy. And truthfully, Sam Howell is just better than Carson Wentz. Better, younger Carson Wentz. I think his career's done. I mean, he's owed a lot of money, so he's going to be on somebody's roster for at least a year or two, and let that dead cap flatten out. But I think you get a lot more with Sam Howell as your quarterback, and I think that's going to translate well for him. And you're never going to get him cheaper. So right now is the best time. Here's the thing is with dynasty players and picks, you got to get on the front side of it because if you wait too long, you're going to be paying way too much for some of these people. And it's all about opportunity to make that buy. And right now is that time for guys like Jahan Dotson, guys like Kenny Gainwell, because if things go right for him, you're not going to get it for anything you want to pay.
Yeah. It's time to do it now. All right. Your next buy low, Jordan Love.
And that's one that I've kind of had in the back of my head for a few years. And I probably should have done it sooner than right now. But in my mind, he's came in, he looked very spotty at first. But he's came in his time that he's taken over for Rodgers, barring injury, and looked really good. So the possibilities there, I'm not telling you he's going to be a every week in and out starter, but a lot of us in Superflex Dynasty leagues, we struggle for that third guy. You know what I'm saying? That third quarterback. And I feel like if somebody drafted Jordan Love, and they've been holding on to him for 2-3 years now, and you come swinging anything halfway decent, they're probably going to take it and not even realize that Rodgers is probably not going to be there next year. So it's just a good opportunity to solidify, in my opinion, that third quarterback spot on your team, especially if you're hurting at quarterback. Because I'll tell you right now, Superflex Dynasty, that those bye weeks, man, they'll fuck you. And if you got a guy that you feel confident playing, even on like a very good starter, bad matchup, that means a lot for your rest of season kind of outlook. So I'm good. Jordan Love, if you got a late second, early third, and you can get him, I'd do it.
I agree. It's just worth the buy low. I'm not even sure if the guy's going to be good, but just due to the value of quarterback, might as well. If he has one good week 1 game and you buy him for a late second and someone offers you something decent, you probably move him for that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a good buy low.
If you're in a 12-team Superflex Dynasty, you got to realize that's 36 starting quarterbacks or 36 quarterbacks that need to be rostered to have a viable rotation. I know things change throughout the season. I get that. At minimum, 36. Well, there's only 32 starting quarterbacks. So 4 teams essentially, if not more, regardless, if someone's hoarding a couple, so on and so forth, at least 4 teams in that league are not going to have a viable guy to fill in on bye weeks. So then you start looking at, skill position players, whatever. I have had to do that in the past. It kind of just depends on how you fall. But getting that guy is the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs sometimes. If you have that strong of a rotation, my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. The quarterback thing can be tricky in Superflex. All right. Going from the new Green Bay quarterback to the old one, I have buy low on 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers. This is probably a contending teams only, but he's probably gone. I think he probably ends up in New York. There's a couple of other teams, Tennessee, Las Vegas, New England, that have been at least thrown around and talked about. But regardless of where he goes, it's going to be an upgrade from Green Bay's torn-up line and very young receiving core. He's going to be better. Now, the question is, does he have 1 year? Does he have 2 years? Does he have 3 years? He's 39 right now, so I don't think he has any more than 3. But if you get 2 good years, that would have been totally worth a second or 2. If you're only getting a year, probably not. But that's the gamble you have to take. If you're a team that you're set up well, have 3 good quarterbacks, maybe 2 startable, 1 that's fringe, like a Mac Jones last year, you can grab Aaron for pretty cheap. Go do it. Yeah. Easy.
I think the one that makes the most sense is the Jets. I think the Jets are the one that, to me, I could see him getting excited about, because I truthfully feel like the Jets have a very damn good roster.
Mm-hmm.
They have youth along the offensive line. They have a couple young running backs. They got receivers that are way better than what he was dealing with last year. Defense is scary. They are a team that might be an Aaron Rodgers away from, I'm not going to say a Super Bowl, but at least a playoff win or 2. For me, it would be worth it for them to make that move. Now, a lot of other teams, do I think Las Vegas is 3 years away from a Super Bowl? I really don't. I think they got a lot to deal with. I think Josh McDaniels kind of falls into that Todd Bowles kind of conversation, where he is a colossally good coordinator, but he's just not that guy at the head coach level.
Unless he films practice.
Yeah, he'd be doing some sketchy shit, huh? But, New England, I think that's bad news if Aaron Rodgers goes to New England, because Bill Belichick and him really were made for each other, but they just never linked up. That would be bad news. There's a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. Quarterback market's going to be hot and heavy. And like I said, New York for me, but here's the thing about Dynasty, you got to get on the front side. You got to get him before he gets traded, because the second he gets traded, you have a Deshaun Watson situation. And all of a sudden, his value goes from nothing to more than you want to pay. That's the guy I traded Deshaun Watson to last year.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. That's why I said do it now. Don't wait. Do it now. He's in Green Bay and it's not looking good. All right, Caden, your last buy low. You fill this one for me, Calvin Ridley.
Dude, I'm big hyped on Calvin Ridley this year. I think he is exactly what's missing from that Jacksonville offense. Trevor Lawrence already looked lights out. You give him an alpha receiver, and I think the sky's really the limit for him. I think at the end of next year, Trevor Lawrence is a top 3 fantasy quarterback, and I think a lot of that has to do with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, I don't know where he's going to finish. I mean, wide receivers seem so volatile every year. You got your usual suspects, but it shifts a lot. It's kind of wavy. I'm not going to say he's going to be the wide receiver 1, but he does have a decent, probably low-end wide receiver 1 season. I went out and got him It was in a package deal for Saquon. And the way I see it, I gave a late second for Calvin Ridley, and I'm not mad at all.
No. Very worth it. Ridley's definitely he's Trevor Lawrence's Stephon Diggs. And I think he's going to be just fine coming back. All right, my last buy low. Give me Derrick Henry. 29-year-old running back. Again, in the Aaron Rodgers vein of that seems old, but I think the guy has 2 to 4 more top 12 running back years in him, at least. He's cut from a similar cloth of the Frank Gores, the Marshawn Lynch, and the Adrian Petersons of the world, where you can play running back till 35 and be fine. He played 16 games last year, ran for 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns. This was the worst offense he's been a part of since he started to blow up 4 years ago. They had no receivers. Everyone was hurt. Tannehill played poorly. Malik Willis played quarterback. Josh Downs played quarterback. Josh Dobbs played quarterback. Guy still ran for 1,500 yards. They'll have to be better. I don't think that Vrabel plays this shit, and Derrick Henry's going to be a big part of it. I think that until we see that he's not, he's an RB1, and he's probably the cheapest RB1 you can get right now outside of a guy like Dalvin Cook, who I'm not touching.
Yeah, dude, I have to agree. So we're hitting a point, in my opinion, we spent a long time with the top running backs, in fantasy drafts being Kamara, being McCaffrey, being Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, all these guys, Joe Mixon. The only two out of that similar age range that really do anything for me at any level is McCaffrey, because McCaffrey can catch the ball, because McCaffrey's in the best position he could be in, and Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry, I just don't feel like he's of this earth. And a 29-year-old running back in Dynasty, 95% of people should be looking to move a 29-year-old running back. Just truthfully, because it is what it is. Like, they're just not your average run-of-the-mill running back's done at 29. Fucking done. Like, if there's, like, you remember Todd Gurley? That dude only played till like 26 or maybe 27. We look at Zeke. Zeke's younger than me. What is he, 27? He looks like dog shit. I'm trying to think of some more examples, but we could go all day with this, but yeah, late 20s running backs fall apart. I don't think Derrick Henry's the same way. Adrian Peterson was 33 running for 1,000 yards for the Redskins, I think. Yeah, it's a lot more like that than like Zeke. So, yeah, I'm definitely in on a buy for Derrick Henry. You find the right situation, the right fantasy owner, depending on where they're at, I feel like he could be had. I'd give up a second. Maybe
second plus, and you're coming out on top.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, last part of the show here, betting preview. We'll hit this pretty fast. First game Sunday, Philadelphia, who's favored by 2.5 at home, versus San Francisco. I'll start here because I have a strong take. Philadelphia beat 4 playoff teams all year. Ready to hear them? First round exit Vikings on a primetime night. Coached further than they should have gone Giants. Week 4 Jacksonville. And then the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys. Oh, they won a playoff game last week against the Giants. They played the most shittiest poor schedule that I have seen in a long time. And everyone's overhyping them. Jalen Hurts is a system quarterback who only plays well when he's ahead after half. They're going to struggle against San Francisco. The defense is going to shut down the run game. Offense is going to move the ball against the defense. Give me the Niners. I'm taking the plus 2.5. I'm taking the Niners money line. Give me the under here. I'm taking under 46.5. Philly's going to get the fucking brakes beat off of them in a low scoring affair.
I agree. I'm favoring the 49ers here. I'll take the 2.5. I'll take the money line. Over under, I'm not really sure about that, just because we know both teams can score the football. But yes, I agree with you. I don't think the Eagles' success story carries on. I think Brock Purdy and them boys might be a little too much for him, and it's really going to be more of a defensive showing. That is a phenomenal defense. D'Amico Ryans has done wonders with that team. Yeah, give me the 49ers in that.
Yeah, that one was pretty easy. All right, last game of the weekend. This is to see who plays the supposed 49ers in the Super Bowl. Kansas City -1.5 at home versus Cincinnati. This one's a tough one. Where are we going here? Are we taking Cincinnati or are we taking Kansas City? At 1.5, you're essentially picking the winner because no NFL game is like 1 point for the most part.
You said the line is what now?
1.5.
Kansas City?
Yep.
It's in Kansas City. I feel like, man, I just like Joe Burrow too much. I feel like the Bengals are a little too hot right now. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder. Chiefs went in and won a very unconvincing game last week. For me, I'm going Bengals. I think they're out for blood, and that's kind of the way I'm going with that. I'll take the underdog both games and say Bengals and 49ers in the Super Bowl.
Who wins that game?
I think the Bengals.
Go be the Niners. I have Kansas City winning this. I think Mahomes is going to want this bad. He is 0-3 versus Burrow in his career. He has that high ankle sprain, but here's the deal. I think, and it's going to sound weird, in this situation specifically is going to help him. Think about last year. Cincinnati confused Mahomes by dropping an end into coverage, and then when he scrambled, nothing was open. Well, if he has to sit in the pocket, if they drop that end, he has time, and something's going to develop. So, in a weird way, the way they play defense might work against them with Patrick Mahomes having that weird ankle injury. So, I have Kansas City winning. I think the San Francisco wins the bowl this year either way. But I think it's going to be a close game. Over 48.5 all day long. I took that right when I saw it.
It's over. Yeah, I don't need to hear the number. I'm going the over on that.
I think I made a parlay that was quite a big winner. It was like over. It was both passing overs, the points over, and then a couple random anytime. It's like a Kelsey anytime and a Jamar Chase anytime.
Yeah, I'd go both those. I just feel like the Bengals have their fucking number. We know that. And I feel like Joe Burrow goes to sleep watching Patrick Mahomes tape. That's the kind of, like, Joe Burrow's swagger is not of this world. No. He's got a different level of swagger for, a fucking Ohio white dude.
Yes.
But it's gonna be a good game, man. I'm really not so excited about the Eagles 49ers game. I want to watch that Cincinnati Kansas City game. Because here's the deal. Like, you gotta look at the teams in the playoffs right now. Or the ones that are left. These were all teams that 7 years ago were absolute fucking garbage. Every last one of them. Cincinnati especially, San Francisco was really bad for a long time. It's a good story that, like, if you get the right people in the organization, you can turn it around. Kansas City sucked for a long time. I mean, dude, like, these were all teams that 8-10 years ago were picking top 5 in the draft, top 10 in the draft, like, every year.
Yeah.
So, good story, man. I'm glad to see some new faces out there. Like, I know you didn't hate to see it, but everybody hates watching Tom Brady win the Super Bowl every year.
No, nothing wrong with that. Give me one more.
What, when Tom comes back?
Yeah. Anything else we want to touch on?
No, man. I mean, it's getting to that time in the year. We're going to get a little creative with content over the next few months. I think we might do a couple little dynasty mock drafts here pretty soon. Kind of touch the little feelers. Talk about going into that, because that's kind of the point we're at. I mean, if you're in a dynasty league, you're kind of at this point you're building towards next year. You're building towards talking about the guys, and that's something I'm kind of looking forward to doing.
Yep. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I hope you all have a fun betting weekend. That's what these playoffs are good for. No fantasy. So have a good night, guys. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.